One of my favorite parts about working for the YWCA is that I get to really focus in on things that matter to me. For instance, eliminating racism and empowering women is something I'm passionate about. And the fact that I get to clock in each day and work on those agendas is really a pleasure and an honor.
My favorite thing about working at the YWCA is just having the opportunity to work with so many different family styles and helping them to achieve their permanent goal of identifying housing.
My favorite thing about working for YWCA is I get to work in a gym. I'm surrounded by members taking a step to get healthy, music, and just such a great atmosphere. Recently, I bumped into a previous fitness member at the grocery store. She brought up the time where she was part of our YW Tri Club triathlon team. And she told me how she was able to take the things that she learned in training and apply it to other areas of her life and how it helped shape her fitness journey.
I have to admit, before working here, I didn't know that there were residents here, that there was a Women in Transition program. We had one participant, very young girl. I would see her come in late at night working and she would be tired, but she persevered and until she was able to regain custody of her children. But now I see her smiling, I see her children, they're happy. And so that's just one of the testaments of how well the housing program works for our residents.
When things get difficult, what keeps me going is really the difference that our work at YWCA makes. I've seen fitness members achieve new goals. I've seen transitional housing participants get new houses, and I've seen students read new books. And in this past year alone, I've gotten to see the impact of our racial justice and advocacy efforts. And I have been able to see how they react to our subject matters of Black maternal health and education disparities for Black and brown girls, and how they specifically want to make a difference in our community.
One thing that makes me smile when I think about my students is just really when they first get in, being able to hear about their day, because they always brighten my day by telling me about their days and just the different things they're learning, the different things they're experiencing. What keeps me going when it gets hard is just seeing their faces, man, to see them light up, to know that we're giving them a level of hope, a safe place for them to go after school, because a lot of kids don't have a safe place to go when they get out of school. So to know that they are in a place where they're gonna get a snack, they're gonna get someone to help them with their work, that really warms my heart, knowing that we're able to provide that for them.
One thing that makes me smile about working at the YWCA is actually my colleagues in this work culture. We literally are a family in every sense of the word. It's not cliche. We really have each other's back, and we work throughout each department to make sure that everyone has what they need and that our families and participants feel supported.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shelley Smith, and I am the president of YWCA Central Carolinas Board of Directors. On behalf of the entire board, I'm delighted to welcome you all to our virtual fundraising event, We Believe 2022. We are coming to your computer screen live from Wonderworld's West End studio. To start off this evening's event, we wanted to take a moment for you to hear from some of our incredible members of our YWCA team, sharing their favorite things about YWCA, what makes them smile, and what keeps them going in the work they do each day. I'm always personally inspired by this team and hope their words left you inspired as well and confident that their work and commitment has a huge impact. Many of you have attended YWCA's annual We Believe event in the past, whether in person or virtual. We of course look forward to the day when we can all be together celebrating YWCA's mission and fundraising for our programs, but we are just as excited to be celebrating with you all virtually today. With that said, please do use the chat box to say hello. Let us know you're watching. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank some of our wonderful sponsors. YWCA is proud to have Bank of America and Duke Energy Piedmont Natural Gas as our Empower Equity sponsors for this virtual event. We are so grateful to have their longstanding support of our mission and programs. And now, I will pass the microphone to our friends Keith Cockrell, President for Bank of America Charlotte, and Catherine Neby, President of Duke Energy Foundation.
Hi, I'm Keith Cockrell, President of Bank of America Charlotte. We're proud to be the Power Equity sponsor for this year's event. We share the YWCA's commitment to eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. Bank of America is thrilled to be celebrating with you virtually today. We have a long history in partnership with the YWCA, including funding, volunteering, donation drives, and board leadership. In fact, I'd like to thank Frenchie Brown and Samoya Rankins and Christy Gragnani Woods for their continued board service and leadership. Congratulations, Kirsten and her team, for remaining steadfast in their commitment to serving women and families. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Neby, President of the Duke Energy Foundation. On behalf of Duke Energy and the Foundation, we are proud to celebrate YWCA's 2022 We Believe event. Justice, equity, and inclusion is at the heart of our philanthropy, and we shared YWCA's commitment to stand against racism, to empower women, and to promote justice and dignity for all. I am thrilled to join with you virtually today.
Thank you, Keith and Catherine. In addition to Bank of America and Duke Energy Piedmont Natural Gas, we would also like to thank Ally Financial and YWCA Fuller. We are so grateful for their support of YWCA and our We Believe event. We are also grateful to have all of you tuning in with us today, and we know you understand the importance of coming together this evening. First, we're here to celebrate YWCA's powerful mission to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. We're also here today to raise the critical funds necessary to make this mission a reality. By donating today, you provide safe and affordable housing to women and families facing homelessness. You provide literacy programming to children from low-income households. You provide racial justice programming that educates and mobilizes our community. And you do all of this during a global pandemic that has made life all the more challenging for our low-income communities and our communities of color. I am proud and excited to announce that you have already raised more than $250,000 towards our We Believe campaign. For those of you that have already donated, we thank you. I hope as you watch the rest of this event, you continue to feel inspired to give. Because every dollar we raise this evening and as a part of our We Believe campaign makes a remarkable impact on our community. This next video will show you what your support looks like in action.
Before I came to the YWCA, my life happened to kind of go through a lot. I had just became a single mother. I lost my job first. I lost my house. Then after losing my house, I lost my car. Here I was, a 24-year-old single mother, struggling, trying to get it together. I was in a position where I needed stable place to stay, and I needed support. I definitely needed support. I had no support before the YWCA.
Dominique had a lot going on in her life. She was in her early 20s. She was navigating how to be a mom to 3 children, and she was just in a situation where she was really trying to find herself. So this was a great place for her to land so that we could help her pick up the pieces and to move forward with where she is now. Families Together is an 18-month transitional housing program serving homeless families with minor children. So families that enter into the Families Together program are seeking permanent housing options. While they're here, I have the opportunity of working one-on-one with all of the heads of households where families set their own goals. So I don't set goals for them. They tell me what it is that they would like to work on. I help identify resources to help them move forward. So for example, we have case management services where we do goal setting, we work on budgeting, and we identify what needs to happen in order for them to move from homelessness into permanent housing.
So when I lost my first job, I had my second job to fall back on. And I was only receiving about 30 hours a week. I had to learn how to budget because the little bit of income I had to learn how to manage that amount of money.
We have people who go to work every day, who work 9 to 5s. However, because of the affordable housing crisis that we face in this area, need an opportunity to just pause, find a transitional time to regroup, reset, and identify what steps that they need to take in order to move forward into a permanent housing option. So it's a very real issue that we're facing and that we're fighting against, but it's not because of their lack of effort and their lack of trying and them not doing the work to get to where they need to be. I am elated that YWCA will be building 104 affordable housing units right here on our front lawn at 3420 Park Road. We have an opportunity of a lifetime, and I hope that others will follow our lead by using property to resurrect buildings that will help meet the affordable housing crisis here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
I've been on housing lists a lot. So to hear that it will be 104 units available for families, that is awesome. Because now they'll be able to leave here and go there. That's gonna be a tremendous outturn because it's setting them up for long-term success.
Working for an organization that is part of the solution, it lights my fire, it's who I am, and I don't want to spend my time any other way. Hey girl, hey!
Hey, good to see you.
You as well, it's been so many years. How long has it been?
It's been a good 5 years.
So I saw on Facebook you have a store.
I do. I have a boutique in Raleigh.
And so how long have you had the store?
I had the store going on a year.
That's awesome.
2016, when I graduated from the program, I decided to start a business to motivate and encourage young women. So I use my YWCA story and some of my other experiences to let other young women know that they can make it through, no matter what. So I have my own boutique now. It's called Dominique Inspire in Raleigh, North Carolina.
I am so proud of you. You have a coaching practice, you have a boutique, and you're using your personal testimony and the tools and your lived experience here at the YWCA to encourage so many other women. And just to see it in real time is beyond encouraging and inspiring. So I appreciate you for letting that guard down and letting us do what we do, because we do genuinely care. And just to see the results today, you are doing it, and I'm so super proud of you.
Thank you.
Yes!
It feels good to know that you actually can make it, and we made it. We really made it.
Thank you, Dominique, for sharing your story. We are grateful to be a part of your journey, and we celebrate your determination and joy. You see why I love coming to work every day? I'm continually uplifted by women like Dominique. And also, I have the most inspiring coworkers. They brighten the darkest of days. They are daily reminders of the difference our work makes. Our mission of eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all resonates deeply in hearts across this community and especially within our team. Good evening. Thank you for tuning in to We Believe 2022. I'm Kirsten Sikkelee, CEO at YWCA Central Carolinas. I want to thank the hundreds of you tuned in right now who have been so tremendously supportive and generous during the 2 years of this global pandemic. Your partnership has been priceless, and I'm so grateful. Over the last 2 years, our YWCA family has learned so much about resilience, inequities, the deep need for connection to our loved ones and to our community, and just how little we truly can control. We've worked hard to take care of one another, as well as those we serve. I'm so proud of our team. They keep showing up, leaning all the way into our mission and modeling hope, support, and encouragement every single day. We remain focused on ensuring our YWCA is a beacon of hope for equity and transformation in the face of racism and misogyny. The intersectional nature of our mission centers women and girls of color, undergirding our programs and taking the shape of forums, advocacy, and book discussions. Last summer, we welcomed our elementary students back into the nurturing spaces of our 8 youth learning centers after an entire year of virtual programming. Both staff and children are elated to be together again. Our educators use an equity framework for literacy to help our youngsters develop their own identities, build skills, and question the world around them.
This equity framework cultivates children's genius, and it gives our educators a way to help our children not just survive, but to thrive. We rejoice as women and families overcame homelessness and moved on from YWCA into new places to call home and to build their lives. This past year, 46 women in transition and 5 households and families together celebrated those big moves. We remind them, as we congratulate them, that only their addresses are changing. We're still here for them, and that YWCA means family. As you heard Dominique and Kenya say, we are very excited to break ground on 104 units of affordable housing on our front lawn, with construction expected to start later this summer. While supply chains have suffered and construction costs have soared, our friends at Dream Key Partners are as committed as we are to realizing this vision. A small but phenomenally generous group of YWCA supporters are making these grounds for change a reality so that we can transform our campus and move closer to welcoming new neighbors in 2024. Even before the pandemic began, Justin Perry was one of my most admired colleagues. Over the last 2 years, my admiration for him has only grown. Justin is a passionate clinician, a social justice warrior, and a compelling speaker and writer. A proud Tar Heel, earning both his bachelor and master degrees at Chapel Hill, Justin launched his therapy practice, Perry Counseling, Healing, and Recovery, with a team that shares his vision of promoting healing and ending stigma. Justin's worked with our YWCA team in multiple ways and with many of our nonprofit partners throughout Charlotte, helping us all build muscle for anti-racism and anti-sexism work. Justin always tells the unvarnished truth, but lovingly. He is not just about individual healing, but community healing. I'm honored to call him my friend, and I'm delighted to introduce Justin Perry to you this evening as our keynote speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. Late last summer, as the school year was about to start, students, including my now second grader, were on the verge of having 5 days a week of in-person learning for the first time since March of 2020. Given the various stresses, challenges, and overwhelm expressed by many parents navigating remote learning, and the logistics of children in homes that interrupted life as they and we had known it, one might have expected this to be a happy time. But alas, for everyone, it was not. As I went to a school board meeting, so did a group of women, nearly all sharing the same race, who identified themselves as moms. What transpired during the evening may have shocked many, but not me. As the moms got up, one after another, they offered commentary about reducing education around race. One by one, ironically using Martin Luther King quotes no less, they discussed the wrongs of telling hard realities of our country's history. They discussed addressing systemic racism as divisive, and they essentially proclaimed our nation as one of fairness. Terms such as white privilege were lightning rods. Some people discussed wanting to protect their kids from information that was uncomfortable, saying that should be left to parents and the school board and teachers should not overstep. Now, before going further, I must acknowledge the continued political genius of using divide and conquer tactics around the concept not being taught in order to distract people from larger political goals of defunding and destroying public education in this state and around the nation. Now, while there were people there, such as myself, there to speak about the need to confront our past in order to not continue repeating it in our present, that's actually not where the story turns. For while there was a group of people there advocating for candid, honest acknowledgement of our history, acknowledgement that we live on this land that was violently overtaken by Europeans from indigenous tribes such as the Catawba, Cherokee, Lumbee, Waxhaw, amongst others. Acknowledgement that the non-wealthy Europeans who migrated here sought to escape their homelands, much like current-day immigrants, for similar reasons of poverty, violence, disease, and hope for a better life. Acknowledgement that at times, while they were also exploited, while also acknowledging that despite this exploitation, they were able to remain human versus permanent property or chattel like Africans, able to keep their language, keep their names with a vowel tweak, and even eventually receive parcels of land as hush money. Acknowledgement that the same Europeans escaping unaddressed trauma of England in the Middle Ages violently kidnapped and enslaved Africans and their descendants to release their own trauma. Acknowledgement that Africans had thriving communities and families who were separated before being forced to develop this land with no potential of owning any of it until well into the 20th century, multiple centuries after European counterparts had been granted land in large sums via multiple government transactions, including the Homestead Act. An acknowledgement that although white women could not vote or own land, they were convinced to protect the system by being able to own enslaved Africans. Acknowledgement that poor and working class white North Carolinians were originally banned from receiving education, but granted the right to public education only once free Black North Carolinians advocated for and created it. Acknowledgement of passed down paradigms, laws, wealth, customs, and culture that shaped the very soil that each of you watches this video from, including those in my own house built a mere 3 years before my mom was born, whose deed said it was not supposed to be sold to someone who looked like me. Acknowledgement that while we celebrate women's suffrage as occurring in 1920, Black women could not fully vote until 1968, only 12 years before I was born. Acknowledgement that the very crescent and wedge that have long defined economically immobile Charlotte were not simply a product of market forces, but as a product of post-Reconstruction social engineering that, according to Tom Hanchett's sorting out a New South City, ranked various Europeans as most desirable to extend mortgages and loans to, with the least desirable sets of people regardless of income being, wait for it, Negroes and Mexicans. Ultimately, the meeting turned when brave young women from Myers Park High School who happened to share the same race as the moms got up and gave testimonies of experiencing sexual assault at school. Testimonies of not being heard and responded to in a way that felt appropriate. Testimonies of abusive male behavior being systematically protected. As the young women spoke, the moms passionately cheered them on. The moms showed a genuine compassion for the oppression these young women experienced. The words of these girls spoke to their hearts, and by some of their responses, their lives. These moms were all in supporting these young women in overthrowing a system built on patriarchy, misogyny, and not valuing girls and women in the way that it valued boys and men. A system centuries, and if we're honest, millenniums old. My minister, Kate Murphy, excuse me, also a white mother, but one who had come instead to speak in support of shining the light on our nation's history, sat in shock at how the irony seemed to be completely lost. She looked at me in awe, and with my eyes, I simply responded to her like Pam from The Office. Yep. You see, what these moms failed to recognize is that the same history of structural white supremacy that has devalued Black bodies such as mine every step of the way on this soil, the same structure that they were mobilized to erase from school education was directly interlinked with the patriarchal structure that has devalued feminine bodies such as theirs and the Myers Park students and now graduates every step of the way on this exact same soil. You see, what they were failing to see is that you can't simultaneously topple the patriarchy while protecting white supremacy. In the same way, I, as a black man, can't seek to protect patriarchy while eliminating racism. Their having white skin would not protect them or the girls at Myers Park from being hurt by the ills of the patriarchal aspects of white supremacy, any more than my being a heterosexual male would protect me from the racial aspects. Attempting to combat one of these forces while protecting the other is analogous to two people on the Jerry Springer show being cheated on by the same person but fighting each other instead. In the end, it only promotes unfulfillment for the fighters and protects an unhealthy system for all parties involved. As I got the moment to speak, the either or, both and opportunity presented itself yet again. Race or gender, my pain or theirs. Now, while the bulk of my speech to the board discussed the need for a full picture of how the USA became the USA in order to help promote living into the ideals we espouse, I said that addressing these systemic realities effectively would also engage the work of dismantling the same systems that had put the young women at Myers Park, as well as others around our community and nation, at risk. Me speaking in favor of anti-racist education was not done in opposition to addressing their behavior. It was done in solidarity with it. You see, what I've learned throughout my life is that there is power and value in the phrase, live and let live. However, that phrase does not apply to systemic oppression, as neutrality in the face of this actually impedes the ability of those facing the oppression to live. Neutrality in the face of oppression is not live and let live, it's live and let die. There are times when saying, I'm staying out of it, is completely appropriate. Combating oppression is not that space for me. As a male who has been the same size, give or take a few pounds, since I was 14, I'd be lying if I said I spent much of my life fearing experiencing what the young women described experiencing at Myers Park High School. But that doesn't mean that it is not just as much, and frankly more, my battle to fight than the young women's. In the face of someone experiencing sexual assault, I don't think those moms would think it's enough for me to simply say, it's not me, I'm one of the good ones. It would not be enough for me to say, I didn't do it, it's not my fault. It would not be enough for me to say, this subject should be left to parents. It would not be enough for me to say, you know, it actually used to be worse than this, and we actually have made progress. Why can't we talk about that part? And yet, those are the common retorts to addressing the traumas of race. Changing the type of abuse is still abuse. Allowing one to name the abuse out loud afterwards does not mean abuse is discontinued. In the face of harm, there is a duty to interrupt. There is a duty for us to do all we can to stop the assault. Neutrality allows the harm to continue at the expense of the marginalized. Whether we are talking about racial or gender marginalization, the rules of action over neutrality apply. Eliminating racism, empowering women. The words of the YWCA mission are not words of neutrality. They are words of intentional and forceful action. They are action words set out to promote peace, justice, and fairness, and to facilitate the beloved community that Martin Luther King Jr. radically advocated for. As we set out to execute the YWCA's mission, we must resist the urge to choose which clause of eliminating racism or empowering women we are fighting for, as doing so forfeits both. We must follow the lead of those who have never had the luxury of choosing. Black women. See, nearly 4 decades ago, before I was even potty trained, Kimberly Crenshaw coined the term intersectionality to acknowledge the gap that advocacy for Black women often has fallen under, as they are impacted by both race and gender, and furthermore, class, sexual orientation, and other forms of marginalization. With racial advocacy, as horrific and as inadequate as things have been, the traumas of Black women have often taken a back seat to those of Black men like myself, continuing today. By percentage, Black women are the group most likely to die at the hands of police while unarmed, and yet we rarely know their names. With gender advocacy, as insufficient as it has been, marginalization of Black women has often taken a seat to those of white women. Tarana Burke began the Me Too movement in 2006 to raise awareness around sexual abuse and assault. But most of us weren't broadly aware of it until white female celebrities and others used it in 2017, 11 years later. Now I want to challenge us to resist defensiveness at acknowledging these realities, but instead begin or continue the process of recognizing, owning, and addressing them on the path to becoming a more whole society. It's these types of realities that allowed Black men somewhat to have the right to vote via the 15th Amendment in 1870, unlike Black and other women, while the advocacy of white suffragists that eventually garnered white women voting rights in 1920 left Black women waiting at the political bus stop until 1968, nearly 5 decades later. In 1976, a Black woman named Emma DeGraffenreid sued General Motors for claiming that she had faced employment discrimination based on race and gender. Despite the absence of Black women, the courts found against her, noting that GM had employed Black men as well as white women, and therefore had covered race and gender. Much like with our decision not to expand Medicaid, Black women were again left in the donut hole. This ruling inspired Crenshaw's concept of intersectionality. Now, the YWCA has one of the most powerful missions out there, but its true execution requires us to embrace the Black feminist intersectional lens that acknowledges that eliminating racism and empowering women are not two classes, one of which is core and the other which is elective. To execute the mission, we must simultaneously recognize both clauses as core. And while many of us at times, including me, have fallen short at effective intersectional advocacy, we can't change what we have or haven't done in the past. However, via compassionate accountability, we can and are called to do the next right thing and take a more full approach to both eliminating racism and empowering women, beginning right now. So you might be asking yourself, what does eliminating racism and empowering women look like today in Charlotte? It means doing real truth and reconciliation work that acknowledges Black women's fundamental contribution to building the wealth of this community, while also acknowledging the ways they've been systematically excluded from acquiring wealth themselves across generations and reconciling it. It means doing a deep dive into where the land and/or wealth, however modest or plentiful, your family has passed down for generations really came from, and who was not permitted to acquire such things during that time. It means having an honest acknowledgement of how society, especially during the pandemic, has depended on the essential work of early childhood educators and certified nursing assistants, to name a couple, to care for our youngest, oldest, and ultimately most vulnerable. It means recognizing that these roles are disproportionately filled by Black women and other women of color, and that they are paid lower wages than they deserved, often placing them in the 30% area median income range that the YWCA's housing project will include, but not enough of our community's real estate developments do. You see, when we say things like, we can't make the numbers work on housing developments, we need to ask ourselves, how well could we and how long could our families make things work if we had to truly dedicate the time and energy to full-day education and development of our youngest children and support of our most vulnerable older adults in the prime of our careers? It means recognizing the hypocrisy and the levels of desperation many of us felt during extended childcare closures during the pandemic, as childcare absolutely is fundamental, while pivoting and pushing back against nearby mixed-income housing and public transportation that could help house and transport the very people we depend on for the development of our children 8 to 9 hours a day. It means having an honest conversation about wages, public salary scales, and how the market, regardless of field, is based on a premise that Black and brown women historically were exploited for free, and therefore paying them less now, regardless of qualification or field, is good enough to be called progress, and addressing it. It looks like our city ending source of income discrimination, meaning that landlords are not able to reject vouchers and other forms of income in renting, a reality that disproportionately impacts Black mothers. It means before retorting with an unthought out response about Black men in our absence, you ask yourself, what would the fallout be in white families if the opioid epidemic and underage drinking were policed and sentenced the way Black marijuana and other substance use has been the last 5 decades? It means that recognizing that advocating against affirmative action and similar concepts is actually advocating against the very thing that has strengthened not only the experiences of people of color, but white women such as the YWCA's very own Kirsten Sikkelee, who without it would be restricted from most of the marketplace and certainly positions of leadership, as affirmative action was created to address inequities in both race and, you got it, gender. It means doing a deep dive into the culture of your place of employment, providing not only seats at the table, but microphones in front of those seats to say, we don't just want your photo op, we want your thoughts, your voice, and your perspective because we've lacked it. And we won't silence or exile you as a bad fit for making us uncomfortable, and instead look at it as an opportunity for growth. Lastly, it means truly taking this message to heart and re-listening to it. And finally, being open to hearing it and embracing it when you hear it directly from a Black woman herself. Thank you.
And Justin, thank you. Powerful, powerful words. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow. I hope you all feel as inspired and challenged as I do by Justin's words. Challenged to take action and live out YWCA's mission of eliminating racism and empowering women in your own lives. It was so moving to see YWCA's mission come to life for Dominique Small. Her story is the essence of why we are all here today and a wonderful illustration of how YWCA makes a tangible difference in our community. We are thrilled to witness all Dominique has accomplished and are honored to have had the opportunity to be a part of her journey. The impact that you have seen this evening is why my family and I choose to make YWCA a philanthropic priority. The incredible work of our YWCA could not happen without the financial support of donors like you and me. Your donations make it possible. I'm also happy to tell you today that YWCA has received an incredibly generous pledge from an anonymous couple. Inspired by YWCA's leadership in creating affordable housing opportunities and steadfast commitment to advancing racial equity, this couple committed $25,000 to YWCA as a challenge to us all. Their pledge is a challenge match for us to raise $25,000 in new or increased donations. I hope you all will consider responding to this generous challenge with your support. So tonight, I ask each one of you to give as generously as you can to support YWCA's mission and programs. On your screen, you should see a Give Now button. Simply click this button to make a donation to YWCA. This meaningful work cannot happen without you. Thank you all for joining us this evening, for celebrating YWCA's mission and programs, and for supporting this wonderful organization with a donation. On behalf of YWCA's board and staff, thank you. Have a great evening.